Hello and welcome to That's Hot Podcast. Today we're super excited. This is going to be the second episode. We're super ambitious this season and really committed to this podcast, even more so than before. This is the second time recording this episode because we weren't satisfied with the quality, but Tambaurlon and I are back with video and now with superb audio.
Yes. Shortly
Yes,
before this, I said, thank God, for Jesus. But as Christian pointed out, Jesus did not help me. He did.
he didn't
So
know.
thank you for Christian,
We won't even
everybody,
we won't even get to the specifics of what all went wrong, but yeah,
because it's too
it's a good
shameful.
it's a good thing she's pretty. Today we have a
That's
really exciting episode. By the time that you're watching this, we had already posted the Met Gala episode, and that was all exciting. But we also, in preparation for that, watched the Met documentary the first Monday in May. So that's what we're going to be discussing today.
first Monday in May. I feel like you and I both watched this when it first came out because
Mhm.
we were like right fresh out of fashion school. So of course we were fiendish. We
Yeah,
watched. It's interesting, and that's what everybody was pointing out during the Met Gala was the prevalence of Jean Galliano and his resurgence after his shameful, I guess, his cancellation. Before canceling was really a thing, he was canceled.
he
He
was.
said he was exiled and banished or whatever he was talking about at the beginning of this documentary. So that was interesting in hindsight that now we can say with conviction that Anna Wintour definitely has a vested interest in
Mhm.
his career and his rise.
Totally. And what this is by now, it's almost 10 years since this documentary was released. And we just see it even then that she was trying to like bring him back and including him in this episode. And also it worked at kind of like a not a saving grace, but he was able to kind of speak about, yeah, how you said, being exiled. And since then, this most recent episode or this most recent season, he's had this like blow up. And with that Margiela collection, he's been super viral. People have kind of like forgiven him, but also haven't. But yeah, we saw the like inklings of his comeback even like then, but we just weren't aware of it until like now. I don't think.
It was interesting how everyone was bringing it up because he was actually present at this Met Gala. And of
Mhm.
course, everyone's talking about the outfits and stuff on Twitter, but they were also pointing out how, like, oh, are we just over it? Like, are we just bringing him back? Is that what we're doing? Oh, and I didn't know as a person. Firstly, let me just clarify before the commenters try to rip me apart. I am not in the offended group of what John Galliano did. I'm not gonna say it's not wrong. I agree with him, none of that, but I'm not a part of the offended group. So it is not as burdensome to me as it may be to someone of the group that he offended to like be happy that he's back or appreciate his design because I always loved him. He is the
Mm.
reason, aside from Karl Lagerfeld, that I love runway fashion. Like what he did when he was at Dior, all of his extreme themes, his China collections, his Oriental, I guess would be the correct word because it's, in fashion usage. It was just amazing. Naomi Campbell, his runways, his casting, all of that was great, especially in the 90s when there weren't a lot of black models as far as runway. He always had one on his. So it's just hard for me to be mad at him. Like,
Oh
oh,
yeah.
everybody could have gone on a drunk rant. I'm not saying he should have said what he said, but he didn't kill anyone.
I don't know. This and then we get into whole like that could be another topic, but then you have to separate the artist from the art and
Mhm.
then not being a part of the like group that's being like targeted in his like comments.
Yes.
And I guess that kind of goes into like the whole like standing in not standing in
Like
not
solidarity.
solidarity. So like yeah, it doesn't affect, so like even from a human rights. Oh no, we're not talking about this. No, we're not gonna go into it.
Look it.
I'll
Why
edit this
not?
out.
Just very briefly. For the sake of conversation, Chanel was a Nazi sympathizer
Uh-huh.
and was dating a Nazi and like shacked up in the Ritz during the
Mhm.
war. And I don't see a lot of Jewish girls passing up a Chanel bag. So
True.
are we as a society gonna say that we gotta throw away John Galliano because of the mean shit that he said? Again, I don't agree with him.
Yeah. I think
But
there's vindication in knowing that after I believe it was sold, and so now a Jewish man owns Chanel.
okay, so there we
So that's
go.
great. That's great. Two topics actually real fast.
Mm.
Speaking of Orientalism, we'll speak about that because in the documentary they go abroad to like Beijing to kind of like speak with ambassadors and make sure everything is culturally correct and without like appropriating or demeaning the significance of what it was. They were looking as it at like a retrospective of the influence of ancient China on fashion and like leading up to. Also, to piggyback off of this current Met, Cardi B, she had a whole like backlash, I guess, because in the frenzy of it all, she forgot the designer's name. I think she was pretty correct with how she handled it. She did say Asian, and a lot of people who were upset, especially it was like a former head of Vogue, right?
Hmm.
Okay, so he was really upset and said that, calling her racist and whatnot. But I think she did like fine. Like she totally couldn't remember the designer's name, which is her bad, but also, you are on the spotlight right then. I think it was fine. And then later on, it would have been nice if she corrected herself and mentioned the designer's name and the stylist who worked with them. Back in the documentary, they mentioned that Orientalism was kind of like the West's way of lumping everybody into one big group without being intentional about which people they're talking about, whether it be Japanese, Korean, Chinese. But I wonder why. Okay, so political, I guess, comment is I wonder how Oriental became the bad word, but we can say Asian, which is like the larger, grouping, which is kind of like how you would say Latino versus like Mexican or Guatemalan, etc. So how did Oriental become the bad word, but Asian's fine? And then I did see that a thing on like a TikTok or something. How did colored people then flipped it, but people of color is fine? Did you ever think about that?
I feel like it's all politics because as a Black person in America, right, that's
Hmm.
a hallmark of our political situation in the country.
Yeah.
We were slaves, so we really didn't have a distinctive class. And then we were freedmen
Mm.
right after the Civil War, and then that's taken away. And then there's like a campaign to become something to harken back to where we actually came from, which is African. So, okay, we're African American because that's in a time in America where there's only Black and white. There's only the settlers and then us. And then the mix of that too, like of or how I'm this color, right? The Africans mixed with the slave owners and their family, blah, blah, blah. And then in the 90s or whatever, well, I'm not African, I want to be Black. And then it's even evolving now. Kind of, I see people on the internet wanting to be known as American descendants of slaves. So there's
Hmm.
even more specific of a name for us. And it's a lot. For Oriental, I remember specifically having this conversation with my grandfather who was in the Vietnam War,
Hmm.
not very politically correct person. And he was referring to my friend who was Chinese as Oriental. And I'm like, Grandpa, you cannot do that. They're Chinese, or you have to say Asian. He's like, no, all of them Orientals. And I'm like, Oriental is for furniture and for decoration. So I think that is because they didn't come up with that name. I think we used to call that part of the world the Orient.
Oh, yes, true. Yeah.
So it was never something that they, came up with. It's just like us saying Hispanic
Yeah.
or some other generic term. But the most interesting part of that scene when they were in Beijing was like Anna's visible annoyance at
Mhm.
having to take that lady's word and let her speak about basically she was just trying to advocate for her country and say that she wants them to show more modern China, why every time the West wants to be inspired by the East is always the past. I understand that. But on the fashion and art specifically side of things, not to be mean, but your kind of contribution in that way and inspiration is in your heritage. It's not in the current. Because in that time period that she was wanting Anna to focus on, it was basically like post-revolution, all of this stuff where you guys were just mimicking the West. It's like a watered down version of what we're doing here with a little bit of your own spin on it. That's not what anybody wants to like dream and fantasize about. We have suits, plain clothes here in America. If we wanted to do that, we could call it Wall Street core. We could
Right.
have a Met Gala. We would not need.
Totally. I think
So, yeah, people.
it's
I
totally
think it's hard line with like being inspired with culture because, like, are you ashamed of it? You want to be seen like us? That's stupid.
right. I think she was just looking for it to not be seen as more just like costume. And I think they did a good job of it. Also,
Mhm.
that was what they were trying to do is depict the influence historically and how designers have pulled from that historic influence, whereas we weren't focusing on modern day. And we could also talk about how, like, even currently, like, nobody really has a sense of individual style, especially because the internet, everybody is so homogenous, which would be interesting to see, like, later on. Like, people looking back, just like everybody kind of looks the same for the most part.
I am definitely gonna not look back on the monochrome times proud. Like as a fashion person, I'm glad I mostly wear all black. Like that's my thing. So I feel like I will never really have pictures that I'm ashamed of my outfits. But as far as fashion and inspiration, and it's supposed to be a representation of yourself and your emotion, we did have a very long period of dryness in
Right,
America with just, especially with women's fashion, which is kind of sad. Menswear has not changed in years and years,
right.
but we did have a dark time with women's wear.
Oh,
Another interesting with part with the documentary that was kind of, I'm not even gonna say kind of, it was insensitive when Baz Luhrmann came in and he's supposed to be, as
oh,
you explained, he was supposed to be the guy that's like bringing the tact and bringing the high style opinion and all of this. And he's like, so how Chinesey are we trying to be? That's the
direct
first word that
quote,
he said when he came.
direct quote. Oh, that was awful. And then it's funny because I mentioned previously, it's like of the person who's supposed to like center or find your center for style and elegance. Why'd you pick Baz Luhrmann? He's always known for being like brash and in your face and overly like done, but y'all sought his advice. I think, and it's just because Anna has a like vested interest in his career. I guess they're friends.
It's very much the more that we talk about the institution that is Vogue, which is
Hmm.
basically the empire of Anna Wintour, it's like you see that it's just a cool kids table, and she is like Regina George, and whoever she likes is in the in crowd, and they're getting pride of place, and they're getting these jobs, and say so over what is like the dictation of the fashion market in America and in some other countries. But it's not always on merit,
No,
it's mostly just the people that she likes, other British people like her. Even doing a little bit of research about the Met Gala, Andre Leon Talley worked at the Met Gala before she did. He was an intern for Diana Vreeland.
wow, I didn't know
So
that.
yeah, and
Wow.
then like right before he died, they kind of get on the outs for whatever reason, and he's kicked out of his Met Gala correspondent job to give it to like YouTubers. Like, girl, by now he should be the president or something of it.
In this particular year, it was like 2015, right? The Chinese looked at the or through the looking
Through the
glass.
Looking Glass.
So for this particular year, he was still on board and he was one of the correspondents that year. So that's interesting to see. We're gonna do a whole like deep dive like episode onto him and kind of like those last few years. Like I want to know exactly what's going on.
Oh, the drama.
Yeah, we're gonna find it. We're gonna find it.
I'm sure we could piece it together because the whole Sotheby's auction and everything like that, there's some investigative journalism needed for
Yes,
Andre Leon Talley,
we'll get it
justice
done.
for Andre. What I did appreciate, despite Anna's missteps, was that she knew that it would look a certain way if she did not include some actual Asian artists. So she got Wong Kar-wai, who was the director, I believe, of The Last Emperor in China, a beautiful movie. If you haven't seen it, go watch it. Even if it's just for clothes, watch it. And I guess the exhibit was based off of that in A Time for Love, I think
Hmm.
is the name of it. It's like one of the first times the Asian all cast was getting the scene in America. The clothes are beautiful in that movie as well. So the director, took pieces, A Mood for Love, my bad, A Mood for Love.
Hmm.
He took clips, I guess his favorite clips are the most visually appealing from both of these films, and blew them up and projected them across the exhibit. And he was giving them like tasteful points that he was saying. One of his quotes from the movie is, seeing too much is seeing nothing. So he
Hmm.
made sure they didn't make it look like cheesy antique shop. He really gave it high fashion, high art level with the little displays that they have as well. Because people don't really consider fashion art, so I think these sorts of steps taken to go above and beyond with the presentation will kind of, I don't know, maybe ease that door open so it can be considered art. Because I'm willing to die on that hill that fashion is art.
I feel like you have like different levels. Of course, like we have just like functional fashion. Then we have the artists that were like Alexander McQueen that were really pushing. But then I feel like you have others that are just more so like applied art. So whenever you did say that, they brought on the director to, give them their credibility and just to double check that everything is it has a cohesion and is like lifted. At one point in the documentary, they mentioned, I think it was originally supposed to be the entrance way to the carpet. They were like, "Oh, that looks like the entrance to a Chinese restaurant."
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
They couldn't help it.
Yeah.
One of the things that they were talking about was the fact that this year, well, previous to that, Savage Beauty was the best Met Gala as far as turnout and money raised. Um, and Andrew Bolton was kind of feeling the pressure. It even got taken over to London to be displayed in the Victoria and Albert Museum. And he was feeling like everybody was doubting him, saying he was basically a one-hit wonder, and that's the only one that they talked about. So it was really his opportunity. I think that was in 2011, right after Lee McQueen died tragically, by his own hand. So it was a really big deal. It was very emotional for people. So 2015 was his opportunity with China Through the Looking Glass to make something big and go all out. And of course, they wanted Rihanna to perform. And one of the personally the most satisfying parts in the documentary to me was the girl or whoever, whatever her position is at Vogue, being on the phone, having to explain that Rihanna's team was like, they're not budging on the price. They already feel like they're working with them. Rihanna has a big team. They're not cutting down on anymore. If you want her, this is what they got to do. And they're like bleeping out the prices
Yes.
that she
And
was
she's worth
saying.
it. She knew her worth. So you're right.
Hmm.
It was great.
And she did end up making it the best as far as turnout and I guess social media impact, media revenue, like coverage after the fact and money raised. It was the most successful Met Gala to that point. I think they raised close to $13 million. I think it's 12.5.
Yeah, it was.
And her dress, which Andre Leon Talley famously referred to as the Black Frozen, was Gal Pei. And she said it was like a wedding dress for her country. So it had that huge yellow fur trim cape. And Rihanna, which I just saw, I did not ever see this at the time, but she was saying she was super nervous to wear the dress. When she pulled up, she felt like she was doing way too much. It was too extra. And look, she's historic now. She
Yeah,
is a staple at the Met.
totally. And she wasn't there this year, but well, thinking back to previous Mets, I can think of the Guope or the yellow dress, but also the year it was religious theme. What was that year?
Yeah, that was something in the Catholic imagination when she wore the Pope
Yeah.
hat,
Yeah.
yes.
So good.
And then when she wore Comme des Garçons, that was good too.
So good.
She has served a lot at the Met
Yeah.
Gala. So she's done a lot for them. And interesting how it just started out as a party for like rich socialites. This has always been to raise money for the Metropolitan Museum and the costume department specifically. But over time, it became like more so invite the cooler people to get more media coverage and not just rich people. So I think what we experienced this year when we were watching the red carpet, at least Vogue's coverage, where they were showing a lot of the lesser known people, and the other platforms were showing like celebrity on celebrity on celebrity. And people complained that it was like 2 or 3 days later, and they were just now seeing certain people's looks for the first time.
Even as we mentioned during our live stream episode, we just didn't have any clue who these people were. I still don't know that one lady's name, but she looked fantastic. She wore the Iris Van Herpen, and then later on, I found out that for you that she was styled by La Roche.
Yeah. Oh, Mona Patel.
Oh,
Apparently, she's a billionaire. Because she could afford luxury law. The Iris Van Harpen was incredible. I believe she was the only person of the night to wear Iris.
hmm,
Iris, in my opinion, is one of the last couturiers. So if you're gonna go, go. And then she wore a vintage, I think John Galliano look to the after party.
oh my gosh. Well, since we're on the
Yeah.
subject of the music and also Galliano, what did you think of Ariana Grande's performance look? It was one of the runway pieces from Margiela.
Okay, her performance looked way better than her carpet look, just as far as fashion and
Mhm.
pieces are concerned. But it is very sad that I think you mentioned as well. Now that she is not cosplaying a mixed girl or a black adjacent, light-skinned black girl, her style has dramatically gone downhill. She has never been very fashion forward. She's always shown up in like a Cinderella dress, princess dress. But I don't know how anybody in the world could make that beautiful, so theatrical Margiela collection look boring.
It's so boring. And then
Then she put the little
because,
prosthetics on her face. Like, what was that about?
yeah, she wore that first with the Loewe that she wore for the red carpet, but then I don't know, you thought you would have changed it up for that like performance. Also, it was a surprise that she was the performer that night. We originally thought it was going to be Doja Cat or even Cardi B, but it makes sense for Cardi B not to be because she doesn't have anything that she's promoting currently. But
Hmm.
Doja, she just finished, that new album, and I think she just re-released it with a deluxe.
Yeah, she did Coachella. She killed Coachella.
Oh yeah. So I don't know. I totally was not expecting Ariana,
Not
especially
Ariana.
because of her recent scandal with stealing people's husbands.
And an unattractive husband at that. If you're gonna steal, aim
Yeah,
high.
totally.
For the Met Gala to be just a charitable event, it does get a ton of media attention. I think now because it's more of a public spectacle. We saw a lot of people this year specifically comparing it to the Hunger Games and even saying that the McQueen look that the lady in the Hunger Games, we'll put a picture of her in,
Mhm.
that was even in this exhibit. It's like, people, America is the Hunger Games. That's what the movie is about. You're just late. Don't make this about the fashion thing. Like, we can enjoy a nice look. We can't go out and celebrate and raise money for a charitable cause because is the bottom line of it. Because of the country and the world, we're at war and shit like that. That's been going on. We don't bring that up when other things are happening, when you guys are watching the Super Bowl or whatever. Why do you have to take the fashion event and tell us about all the bad things in society that we should be fixing all the problems? I
That's
don't get
true.
it.
So we got a lot of comments on our social media posts that we've shared for the Met Gala about Palestine, what's currently going on, about the genocide, and that's totally fine. I feel like they should be, everybody should be speaking out about it, but like our social media is probably not the best place. Like call your congressman, call your senator, find outrage in like the corporations, the let the CEOs know. Like don't let us know because we
Mhm.
already know, we already feel helpless like you do. Um,
Yeah. What is bullying your fellow citizens doing?
right. We're aware. We agree.
Yeah. Vote. Go to
Yes.
your congressman's house, your senator. This
Hmm.
is a fashion account. I hate that I have to always reiterate that.
Hmm.
We're here to talk about the looks. Do I go into Forever 21? Do I go into Ulta and ask them who they voting for? No, I don't.
So like if you do feel helpless, I feel like you can take back with your wallet.
Yes, that's a smart thing to
Yes.
do. Instead, like talking trash on social media does not do anything. You need to be an economic terrorist and you
Mhm.
need to attack the people that are sponsoring the war that you're against because that's what it all takes is money. War is very expensive. Attack the people's pockets. If you were paying attention, recently Starbucks had record losses due to everybody like trying to drink that less or not drink it at all. Domino's was giving out free pizzas, trying to lure people back in after the word got out where their money was going. So those kind of things work. Sitting online all day, it really, I mean, you're just loud, but it's not solving anything.
Right. Oh my gosh, totally agree. And when it's so easy not to drink a Starbucks. Anyway, continue. We'll go on back about the Met. But yeah, it was a pretty good documentary. It saw all the process that went into it with Andrew Bolton, which we know now his partner is Tom Brown, which, also for current day, this most recent Met, it was like super Tom Brown heavy,
Oh yes,
especially for,
so many people
yeah.
on the cover wearing his looks. The only person that looked good in Tom Brown was Alton Mason, and that's pretty much because he looks good in anything.
Mm.
But even the tropes and the inspiration that Tom Brown uses somehow just gets old and it's like overdone. I don't know how Vivienne Westwood basically was pulling from the same Anglomania type inspiration, but she never got stale like that. His looks are just like,
The exact same season after season.
mhm.
Yeah. Um, but it was cool to like follow Andrew Bolton.
They did say that the Met Gala has grown in spectacle over the years, basically since Anna Wintour, after Diane Vreeland passed away. Anna Wintour took it over with the help of Andre Leon Talley, and they made it what it is today. They added the more over-the-top theme. She even convinced certain models and celebrities to dress extremely to the theme to get the more costume element played up and make it what we have today. I think the Met Gala has only originally it was not in May at all. It was in December and then it was moved up. I think at some point it is going to become a lot more unrecognizable to the average fashion person because just to stay relevant with the times and what they need to do, which is raise money and get attention, they're going to have to start inviting more people that aren't necessarily what a fashion person would deem worthy. So we saw that happen, and there was a little bit of backlash when they invited YouTubers like Jackie Aina. This year we had a TikToker, Wisdom. Wisdom looked great on the carpet.
He did.
So I think that those sort of things are going to have to happen more, even to bring it down to a younger audience too, people that are going to pay attention. I don't know. The tickets, I think they're 75,000. Anna
Great.
Wintour also
So
is the person that introduced that idea to have corporate sponsored tables instead of just tickets. So people could, I think that's another thing that people don't understand when they see a person they feel is not worthy there. They're like, oh, how did they get there? How did if a designer buys a table, they can basically invite anybody they want as long as Anna approves.
right. So if you want to see us at the next Met Gala, please give us the money. Or sponsor us at your
Please.
table.
Yeah, let us sit at your table.
Yes.
We'll dress ourselves, I guess.
We'll be really skinny. We won't take up a lot of space. We can take one chair. We'll share.
I promise we'll be skinny.
We'll not go in there and not gonna be skinny.
Speaking of skinny, we did see a lot of people on the carpet that were Ozempic suspects.
We did. And it's so interesting to see because like I saw a thing on Instagram today, just like how body positivity, like was that all a joke or was it all a lie? Because now everybody's back to like getting rid of the fillers and the BBLs and taking Ozempic and everybody's like the pendulum swung back to being really skinny.
To being thin. I think it's kind of sad as a woman, especially a young woman, that your body type and basically everything about your looks is a trend from like eyebrows being from super bushy and thick to now people are doing the pencil thin and then the same thing with the weight fluctuation. You might have people even like we said got surgery. You went under the knife to enhance your body, make this bigger, that bigger, and now you're getting it cut off so you can be skinnier. It's sad. You have to try not to let it affect you. It's hard. It's easier said than done, of course, but how long did the big butt era last? Was it worth it? I mean, I guess if you got a big butt right at the beginning, then it was worth it.
You're on trend.
Yeah, you were on trend, but if you just got one like last summer, you're late. If you got one during
Mm.
COVID. Overall, I really enjoyed the documentary. It was great to see the people that actually do the work get the spotlight, like Andrew Bolton, instead of just all the celebrities that we see on the red carpet, the people behind the scenes, the director, seeing the little arguments between Anna and the museum staff for, wanting to do things that are against the rules. Just interesting.
Oh
And
yeah, we can
Christian
kind of
and
touch
I
on that
have
just
decided,
because
oh yeah,
we can kind of touch on that just because that was really, you know, sell the place out and make as much money as possible for the institution. But then you had people on the board who were also present during the like renovation and decoration of everything. And they're just like saying you've taken this whole hall and you've, created a void and there's no longer any art within this. And then Anna did have a point, like that's not what matters in that current moment or in that night. Like we're here to make money and that's what we're going to do. So that was cool, but also interesting.
the dichotomy of it all, right?
Yeah,
Capitalism and
totally.
art, because art does not exist without money. So that's what kind of annoys me when people think or say that, oh, things being associated with commerce takes the art out of it. You want us all to die poor like Van Gogh and cut our ears off to be able to create
Yes.
art? It
Not
makes no
even then,
sense.
just because like even the like Renaissance artists and all that, they were all like they had patrons like the Medici family
Mm-hmm.
or even the
Yeah.
church. Because like
Mm-hmm.
more recently when I went to Italy, the Sistine Chapel and of course he had to pay his bills and he had the church behind him. But of
Mm-hmm.
course he could create his own art on the side.
Yeah. So come on now, people.
Everybody
Money
had a
is
side
necessary.
hustle.
Money is necessary. The other cool thing about this is that I guess if you can just purchase a ticket, that does democratize it in a way. Of course, it's still super elite because of the price point. But if you were really dead set, like if it was your dream, Miss Harris goes to Paris to go to the Met Gala, you could work it out. So I feel like Christian and I, we're gonna do something. I said even if we're 50, I don't care. Like we're gonna go because there were old people on the carpet.
But yeah, so like we're throwing that out there. That's the intention, and we're manifesting that energy. We are going to go to the Met Gala,
Yes.
and we're going to walk the red carpet at the Met Gala. We have to be more specific, otherwise we could just end up being a janitor at the after
Oh
party.
yeah.
Yes, we're going to walk
Yeah.
the
Because
red
I feel like we
carpet.
could be media easily. We want
Oh,
to be
totally.
on the carpet.
Yes.
I want to be Lala Anthony.
Oh, okay. I want to be J-Lo. I'll be J-Lo, the most hated woman.
Oh, the most hated woman with the best outfits, best body.
Yes, it doesn't matter as long as you look the best.
As long as you get that ticket, as long as you get that seat. I wonder whose table J-Lo sits at. Did she get her own table?
I wonder if she was at Schiaparelli because she was wearing Schiaparelli.
With Amy Griffin. Amy Griffin's dress was beautiful. I thought that was Daniel Roseberry's sister, but it wasn't.
Oh, that wasn't? Okay. Yeah,
No,
she
she's just
looks
a rich
fantastic.
lady. Incredible.
Yes,
Well, guys, if you have seen the first Monday in May documentary, let's talk about it in the comments. Let us know what your favorite parts are, clips. Do you feel like we should include John Galliano's rant at all? We got him in trouble. Maybe we'll put it on our shorts page.
totally. Yeah. And also to be more interactive with our hotties, which, by the way, that's what we're naming y'all. No association with Megan Thee Stallion, although we do love her. We're going to start a book club. So we're going to be reading one book, fashion book, of course, a month. And so follow us on all social media. We're going to let you know soon which book we're starting with.
Yes, so you have time in case you have to borrow it, steal it. We're gonna let you know. So it's gonna be on our community page on YouTube, and we'll put it on the other social medias, TikTok, Instagram. We don't have Twitter, really. If you guys want us to get Twitter, you need to campaign for it. Talk about it in the comments. Because
Yeah.
so much social, so little time.
Yes. We also have other jobs and also other
Yes.
podcasts.
Yes,
Yeah.
Christian has started his very own podcast, Genie in a Podcast. Is that the
Mm,
correct name?
yes. Oh my gosh. It's just for fun. I love Christina Aguilera. If anybody who knows me knows that I love her. So it's just about Christina Aguilera. I'm so weird.
What are you going to talk about? Are you going to talk about like facts or are you going to talk about
Facts and
lore?
opinions, lore, everything. It's just like
Okay.
everything I would say on Twitter, because Twitter can be a nasty place, especially because like when Stan Wars get into it, it can be really vile. So this is like
Mhm.
a one-way conversation and it's like all light.
Okay. Is our goal to get Christina Aguilera on your podcast?
Yes. Oh my God. That would be so cool.
All right, Genie the podcast. Make sure you guys follow him on all social media platforms. Listen, he already has a little clip out. When's your first episode coming out?
This next Monday. So I don't know. Yeah.
Exciting. Are you starting at the beginning?
Oh, so we're not doing chronological order. So it's just like
Okay.
whatever I feel like in that day. I think, yeah, just like whatever. And also taking things, from comments or whatever, just like what they want to hear about and delve. Because I know an obscene amount of like Christina Aguilera facts. And so finally
I'm
putting that to
ex-
use.
yes. I'm excited to watch.
Yes.
Christina Aguilera was the first CD I bought that had a Spanish side, and I learned the Spanish version of her song Tu ven conmigo.
Oh my gosh. Classic. That's it for episode 2. We will see you on the next one. Thank you for watching.
Bye. Thanks so much, and see y'all next time.